to get Jay Bilas to paint his fingernails.
What a bro. What a
Listen,
bro.
I mean, that's impressive.
Put a body on her. I don't care if she's never hit a 3 in her life.
But my man has been absolutely horrible. They have gotten no production from the 2 spot. What do you expect when you have KJ Adams and Hunter Dickinson on the floor at the same time? Like, you lucky that Hunter Dickinson can kind of sort of stretch the floor.
It ain't just men that can pull up from 45. Like,
facts.
Women can do it too. So,
hey, talk your talk, Noah. Go ahead and talk. There we go.
All right, Swishpod episode 2. Welcome in. That's ESPN's King McClure. I'm Noah Bono. We got producer Rob behind the scenes with us as well. For starters, really quick, King, let's spend like 2 minutes to open up the show. Who's your one alleged, supposed title contending team that you're not scared of at all? Is there one team that stands out?
Yo, I mean, once again, bro, you're not going to ask me how I'm doing? This is 2 weeks in a row, Noah. This is 2 weeks in a row.
I like to get right to it. I asked you about your off weekend, your grandmother's birthday party. I checked in on you. I just figured we leave that for off the air.
Listen,
you know?
I literally had a great weekend, and you're not going to ask me about it, which is crazy, bro. But it's all good, though. But let's just get straight to it then. I think my number one team, I think we might agree on this, would have to be Purdue. I think history repeats itself. And I think when you look at March Madness, you look at the tournament, the one thing that you need in order to have success is good guards. And you have to play through your guards. That is not the way Purdue plays basketball. They primarily play through Zach Edey. And I mean, the man produces. Every single night, he's producing. He is getting his numbers. But going through the post, playing through the post, I do not think is successful basketball, especially around March in tournament time. You have to have good guards that can make plays. The guards have gotten better, but I still don't think they're good enough in order to get you success in March.
Yeah, I agree with the whole take and the fact my team would be Purdue as well, because I can't put stock into a team that 3 postseasons in a row has figured out a way to crumble at all costs to double-digit seeds. You get the number 13 North Texas, number 15 St. Peter's, and then the worst of the worst, number 16 FDU. So on top of everything you're saying, because I think that those are the main reasons why they've struggled, exactly what you pointed out, it's just hard for me to want to care about them or be like, no, this is the year. Everybody all year has been doing when Virginia lost to the number 1 seed, they turned around and won the national championship. Yeah, but do we remember throughout that title run of the amount of luck that was on their side? You remember the game against Auburn in the Final Four?
And they
called the foul on the closeout?
And they have 3 pros. Let's not forget about that. They have 3 NBA players.
Who's really a pro? Who's really a pro on Purdue outside of Zach Edey?
I wouldn't even say Zach Edey is a legitimate NBA pro.
I mean, I know you're low on Zach Edey. So,
unpopular opinion. I wouldn't even say Zach Edey is a legitimate NBA pro. Maybe in this year's draft class, but in normal draft class, I don't know who takes Zach Edey.
Yeah, I think that point's fair. This draft class probably better odds than if he was in last year's draft class. Would not have likely gotten. He probably would have gotten drafted out of respect for like the year he had and the fact that he is 7'4". All right, but I had a feeling we were going to be on the same side of that with Purdue, just because you can't trust them. You can't trust them. And I want anybody else go throw your money on Purdue to win the national championship. You will be let down.
I will say though, their guards have gotten better. One thing that Painter did do, he went to go get Lance Jones. And Lance Jones has provided a lot for them in the backcourt. And Braden Smith has gotten better. Is Braden Smith ready? I don't know. But Lance Jones is a dude who's gotten buckets everywhere he's been. And I think that he provides an extra layer of depth in the backcourt. But I still do not know if their backcourt is good enough in order to win you a championship, especially as a 1 seed. I see them getting bounced depending on who they're playing against. Maybe second round, Sweet 16.
Yeah, they feel like a Sweet 16 and that's it type of team. Yeah. Speaking of teams and how far they can get, Kentucky, Tennessee. Let's do a quick recap. What'd you see? What'd you like? Obviously, and you texted us this before we hopped on about the 2 white boys.
Bruh.
I think was your verbiage. Dalton Knecht, Reed Sheppard.
Those 2 guys are phenomenal. What I will say, with Tennessee, when you look at the game last night, it's hard to win at Tennessee. But Kentucky shot 52% from the 3-point line. Anybody that shoots 52% from the 3-point line is going to end up with a victory. But to shoot 52% from the 3-point line and only win by 4, honestly, if you're Tennessee, that's really not that bad. But we talked about Zach Edey, okay? We talked about Zach Edey. Last week, we had a conversation about him being National Player of the Year, which, I mean, he should probably get because if you look at his numbers, he's producing. But it just sucks. And the reason why it sucks is because you have a guy like Dalton Knecht. Dalton Knecht, the season that he is having, the last 4 games, my man is averaging 27 points per game in the last 4 against all ranked opponents. So he's not doing this on scrubs. I'm not saying Zach Edey is either, but he's not doing this on scrubs. My man had 40 points last game against Kentucky. Yes, Kentucky doesn't guard anybody, but to average 27 in the last 4 all against ranked opponents is extremely impressive. And to me, if it wasn't for Zach Edey, this is a no-brainer that Dalton Knecht has been the second best player in the country when it comes to a whole body of work. And it sucks because on a year where, I mean, Zach Edey is like he's a rarity in college basketball. You're not going to see a dude 7'4" put up the numbers he's putting up. But it sucks for Dalton Knecht because honestly, he should be National Player of the Year. But if it wasn't for Zach Edey putting up these crazy numbers, Dalton Knecht would easily be the National Player of the Year because of what he is doing. And to me, I think what he is doing is more impressive than what Zach Edey is doing, even though Zach Edey is putting up the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with most of what you said, but I just like to look at it instead of like, and I don't think you're throwing shade at Zach Edey, but I think I don't think you are, but I just think instead of framing it in the sense of like, well, if Zach Edey wasn't 7'4" and as good as he obviously is, like it's just better to look at it like at least Tennessee has a guy. And so, yeah, he's going to get, I guess you could say, I wouldn't say that Dalton Knecht is being robbed of National Player.
He's not getting robbed. But what I'm saying is, like, the year that he is having, as tremendous as he is playing, on any other year where there's no Zach Edey, Dalton Knecht is hands down the favorite for National Player of the Year. So, like, he's not getting robbed because Zach Edey has deserved it. He's put in the work. He's producing, right? But in any other normal year, how often do we see a guy like Zach Edey, a 7'4" specimen that can do whatever he wants, rebounds the ball like nobody's business, and can score at will because he can post up right in front of the rim and he can seal better than any big we've probably seen in the last 10 years. How many times do we actually see the Zach Edey in college basketball? We don't that often. But in any other year, when you look at the guys, when you look at Luke Garza put up numbers, but Luke Garza, you look at Oscar Tshiebwe, I think a Dalton Knecht, what he's doing.
Don't leave out my man Drew Timme.
Oh yeah, even a Drew Timme, right? like even a Drew Timme. But Dalton Knecht, in those years, if he's competing against those guys, I think Dalton Knecht, I think it's even. I think Dalton Knecht even might have the advantage. But because Zach Edey is putting up ridiculous numbers, honestly, video game numbers at 7'4", I mean, I feel for the man Dalton Knecht.
Yes, I feel for him. I mean, he dropped 40 career high. He was 14 of 29. Not to throw it in your face, but I do think it's funny that your player of the year can drop 40 and his team still loses. I'm just saying.
Bro.
But instead of going down that rabbit hole, it's more of a compliment to the Kentucky team. Because I said this to you. What?
Hold on, wait.
Is that not fair?
No,
is that not fair?
That's not fair because if you look at the last 4 games, they've won their last 3 out of 4 games. Okay, they've won their last 3 out of 4 games. Like I said, against ranked opponents, he's averaging 27. He dropped 40. The rest of his team, you know what? I didn't look this up, but let's look this up because now you got me curious. The last game. The rest of his team, this dude dropped 40, and it's not his fault that he didn't get any production from anybody else on his team. So he dropped 40. His team had.
What do you mean? Zakai Ziegler was fine, 17 points, 9 assists. He had a good game.
He had half the team's points. He had 40. The team had 41.
Hey, you know what? Instead of blaming his teammates, especially on the offensive end, because he had half his points, why don't we blame their defense? Because Kentucky put up. What, 80? I think it was 84 total points.
No,
they had no answer. They had no answer for Mr. Six Man of the Year, Reed Sheppard, top 5 overall pick. They had no answer for him.
I don't want to hear about that. I don't want to hear about that because I want to go back to what you said. He dropped 40 and still lost. Let's talk about his 39-1. My man did everything.
I don't want to go backwards.
My man did everything that he could do last night in order to try to help his team win, and they still only lost by 4. Had they not given up 52% from the three-point line, had they given up maybe 40% from the three-point line, they walk away with the win, and then they sweep Kentucky. Like, yes, they didn't guard the 3-point line primarily due to
What do
Reed
you mean
Sheppard.
sweep Kentucky? Didn't they lost to Kentucky the first go around?
No, they beat Kentucky the first go around because that's why Kentucky had to win this one because then it would have been. Yes, they did.
Remember I said to you last week they had 3 SEC losses, and
Let's
Kentucky and South Carolina were 2 of Tennessee's 3 SEC losses.
No, but they beat them one.
Look, I got it right here.
They beat them 103
right,
to 92.
Right. I don't know. Why did I have that stat? I'm completely wrong. Why don't you just null and void everything I just said? But to your point, Kentucky leads the country in 3-point field goal percentage, 41%. The most efficient 3-point shooting team in the country. And, I mean, even when you add in what Antonio Reeves is doing, 27 points, he's been just as impactful of a guy that obviously Reed Sheppard's been the star of that Kentucky team. And, by the way, I just mentioned this a little bit in passing. I think it's insane that Reed Sheppard, game to game, raises his draft stock even more. From, like, where he was at the start of the year to, like, maybe if he even enters the draft, maybe he's like a second rounder, to then he's a late first rounder, then he's a top 15 pick, then he's top 10. Now he's like a legitimate like first college player off the board in the 2024 NBA draft, and I just think it's a credit to him. I was looking at the Jonathan Javoni's, and they have him as the first or the first college guy off the board after like some G League Ignite guys. A couple Europeans. I can pull the list up.
No, that's fair. I actually saw that same list because I think it was like number 6 or something like that.
Yeah, it was number 6.
Yeah, it was number 6. No, you're right. But I think the reason why he's so high is because of the efficiency in which he plays the game with, and honestly, the confidence, the shots that he was taking last night, like in transition, to pull a 3 in transition. I don't care if you're a freshman, a sophomore. I don't care what year you are, but to do it as a freshman. Pull a 3 in transition instead of trying to take it all the way to the cup. Do you know how confident you have to be in order to shoot that shot? A transition 3 off of a steal, Noah. You missed that shot. Guess what's happening? You're going to come sit over here with me. Yeah, you're going to come sit right next to me, and you enjoy your time over here on the bench. But for him to shoot that shot, that just goes and shows the confidence that this young man has.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a credit to him because it's been a progression all year. And this is what I was thinking about when Kentucky won on the road. And, you know, there's like this, they're jumbled up in like that second, third place for the SEC standings. I don't know how it's going to shake out like seeding wise for the SEC tournament. But I always find it funny when teams, they go, you know, they have a couple early season losses. They have a bad loss. Like Kentucky has that bad loss to UNCW.
Yeah.
Which was and it was at home.
Horrible.
And it's a bye game.
Absolutely
terrible. But when I think about losses like that one should have never happened. But some of their SEC losses, like, to me, were inevitable. And I always laugh when I hear, like, other people in the media, like, get really down on a team after a loss. Like, you see it in football all the time. Like, the Chiefs lose to the Bills, and all of a sudden – and, you know, the Chiefs had a couple bad losses, but all of a sudden, like, they're not a Super Bowl team. They ain't going to win it. Like, they make their postseason prediction months in advance. And I felt like that's what happened with this Kentucky team, where, like, they had a couple weird losses. They have young guys. Coach Cal hasn't had a lot of success really since, like, 2019 in terms of postseason success. And people are always like, they just sell their stock. But I have loved watching Kentucky all year. They've been my favorite team. I've been completely biased towards them. But I think it's because, like, what we're all seeing now, like, I was bought into in the beginning of the year while they all had to progress to this point. Like, even through the bumps and the dips. Bro, I was like, nah, but there's still this team that can make a Final Four.
Hey, I call cap.
We had this conversation at the beginning of the year.
You weren't bought into this. There's no way.
Stop
no way.
Stop. You're not going to do that right now just for a debate.
I'm going to do it. No, I'm not debating. But there's no way in the world. Listen, hear me out. There's no way in the world that you thought that Reed Sheppard would be this good. There's no way in the world.
But I didn't say Reed Sheppard.
But I'm saying the whole Kentucky
team in general. I thought this was the ceiling.
But he makes this Kentucky team, like, the ceiling only gets to this Kentucky team if Reed Sheppard is not playing the way he's playing. This Kentucky team is not as good as they are. If Rob Dillingham is not as good as he's playing, then they're not as good as they
but
are.
what the hell does that matter? Because if it wasn't them two, then it was going to be.
You cannot tell me at the beginning of the season after they lost to UNCW that you knew that these two freshmen would be this special and be a top 10 to be two top 10 picks.
But why does it matter if I didn't think those two were going to be special? If I thought Justin Edwards and DJ Wagner were going to be the two guys, because I still thought, regardless, some of these freshmen are going to be super impactful, along with the Trey Mitchell vet, Adu Thiero, Antonio Reeves. Like, I just liked the team. So regardless of who it is that's leading the team, I don't give a shit. I don't care. I care about the fact that, like, and you can go back to my Instagram. I made the video about Coach Cal and his success with freshman-heavy classes, and that's why I was bought in. Is because I'm like, dude, he's got 5 of the best 25 freshmen coming out of the 2023 class, and they got a couple good vets. I like their chances. It's been a while since he's put together, like, one of these really young, laden teams, and I just think that throughout the course of the year, like, you can't look at a Kentucky team and be mad when they lose and then try to predict their postseason success, midway through January, when you knew coming into the year this wasn't a 38-1 Kentucky team.
Yeah,
this was never meant to be that team. So to me, the losses are inevitable. You take them as you go. Those are your dips. But you know this better than anyone. Like playing at Baylor, losses during the season, when you know your expectation is not to win every game during the year, are beneficial to the team's overall progression throughout the season. You learn from the losses. You fix the mistakes in the losses. You understand where your ultimate flaws are when you lose games you probably shouldn't have lost, but maybe you should have because you ended up losing. And ultimately, that depicts how you're going to succeed in the postseason and what your ceiling ultimately is. All the judgments, middle of December, middle of January, like, I'm saying I never was bought into any of that because I knew, like, this team was young. They're a work in progress. Everybody has their own roles. You got a lot of freshman guys. We talked about the dynamic between some of these higher-ranked freshmen now starting the game but not finishing the game. And the lower-ranked freshmen, Dillingham and Sheppard, are finishing the games. Like, there's weird dynamics on this team that everybody had to get used to. And look at Justin Edwards emerging. All of a sudden, 16 points. He's been putting it together of late. So, like, you got guys stepping into some roles, and I think it's coming at the right time. That's all I'm saying about Kentucky.
I personally wasn't bought in. And I like good guards. I like good guards, but I personally didn't expect the Reed Sheppard to be playing this well. I didn't expect the Rob Dillingham, even though the first game when they played against who was that in the Champions Classic? Whoever they played against in the Champions Classic, when they played in that game, Duke? I was like, Rob Dillingham is a little different.
They played Duke or Kansas.
It was one of the two, but I was like, he's a little different. Like, his dude might be one of them ones, right? But I didn't like Wagner's game. I wasn't huge on.
I still don't. Yeah, I still don't.
I wasn't huge on Justin Edwards. I didn't expect Reed Sheppard to play the way that he is playing, which I think nobody did. So I think when you add those 3 proponents up, I just didn't expect this Kentucky team to be this dangerous. I liked Antonio Reeves. Actually, I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't love Antonio Reeves coming into the year. I kind of like him a little bit more now, but I didn't love him coming into the year. But when you add all these guards up, I mean, good guards win you games. And I think what's really made this team special is Dillingham and Sheppard. Without Dillingham and Sheppard, I think this team is average. But with Dillingham and Sheppard, I think I'll speak for myself. I personally had no idea that these two dudes will be balling the way that they balling. And more impressively, the efficiency in which they're doing it with, I didn't expect that. So that's why I said, like, I'm not going to buy into the hype of, like, the media and what they say as far as, oh, this team is so overrated. I'm not buying into that. But I didn't expect this team to be this level of good and deep.
I was just going off my own feel of, like, what I knew about the prospects coming in. And if I were to make a prediction of who the 2 freshmen I thought were going to be the guys, yes, I would have said DJ Wagner, Aaron Bradshaw, and Justin Edwards. Those would have been the 3 before I named the other 2. But regardless of who it ended up being, it still didn't make a difference to me because I was like, my expectation was this team was going to be good, regardless of who was at the top of the team leading them. And you still have Mitchell and Reeves doing their parts as the veterans that are really been huge contributors. All right, as much as I love Kentucky and I could talk about them for 45 minutes, let's briefly move on. Houston, they win the Big 12 regular season championship. Their first year in the Big 12, absolutely annihilated Kansas, who, you want to go back to preseason expectations, I remember vividly telling you Kansas absolutely stinks. I don't care if their starting 5 is healthy. They stink. I feel bad for Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough. Hopefully they're healthy for Big 12 tournament and the NCAA, whatever. My point is I want to say something really quickly on Houston. credit to Calvin Sampson coming over to the Big 12 and immediately winning. It's not even really debatable in everybody in the college basketball scene's mind that the Big 12 is the hardest league in college basketball on a night-to-night basis. And they come in there and they just run the table. And they come in first. And now they obviously have the Big 12 tournament, but like they have a regular season outright championship to their name. And I just think it's a credit to Calvin Sampson, the culture that he's built, the way he recruits, the way he develops players, the leadership that he's given and taught Jamal Shead. Like, it's been all around program effort, but it starts at the helm with him. And I just think when you look at like his track record, the 4 AAC regular season championships, you got the 2 tournament titles, you got a Final Four appearance, an Elite 8 appearance, 4 straight Sweet 16s. Like, that guy's a winner, man. That guy knows how to get buy-in from his guys, get into a role, have guys leave for the draft, roll and replace, get the new guy in, get him up to speed. Like, and I don't know. I just think it's a credit to him. They're first in scoring defense. They're holding teams 56 points per game. Like, they're legit. And it's just a credit. Ultimately, it starts with him.
Legit is, I think legit might be a stretch, big dog. Legit,
you're low. Are you low on Houston?
I'm not going to say I'm low on him because I agree with everything that you said. I mean, Calvin Sampson is a winner. He has put together a staff that buys into the culture and that recruits the right players year in, year out to execute the way that he wants to execute. I mean, shout out to Coach Bilas, Hollis Price. Everybody on that staff has done a tremendous job. Here's what I will say. In order to have success in March, I think there's 2 things. It's a 2-factor thing. In order to have success in March, you got to have really good guards who can score the basketball. As good as Jamal Shead is, as good as LJ Cryer is, I do not know if Houston scores the ball well enough to be able to compete at a level when you run against a team like a UConn, you run against a team like Kentucky, and you turn it into a scoring battle. I do not know if they can score the ball well enough to be able to keep up. Secondly, Houston is extremely aggressive, but if you ask anybody in the Big 12, that is a place when you go into their facility, the Fertitta Center, you will get fouled. They're going to be ultra aggressive on the defensive side of things. So what happens when you're in a tournament game and now all of a sudden you run into 3 Pac-12 referees, or you run into a Big 10 officiating crew, ACC officiating crew? They officiate the game differently conference to conference. When you look at the Big 12 versus the Pac-12, we always get the rap of the Big 12 being extra aggressive and extra tough and physical. And the Pac-12, what is the rep that we say about the Pac-12?
What was the question?
What's the rep?
You started. So we're talking about the Big 12, and then I heard Pac-12.
What is the rep that the Pac-12 gets?
You know better than me. I don't know. I don't watch Pac-12
that they're softer than toilet tissue.
Oh, West Coast basketball.
West Coast basketball is softer than toilet tissue, 100%. So because
toilet tissue.
Not
toilet paper, tissue,
toilet paper, whatever. We down south, right? It's a little different down here.
I like it. I like it. It's fine.
So whatever. If they run across a Pac-12 officiating crew and now they start calling the game extremely tight, can Houston be able to adjust? Or is that physical style just going to run up the foul count? And now all of a sudden the other team is in the double bonus by the 10-minute mark for the rest of the half or for the rest of the second half or the rest of the game. I don't know if they can adjust.
Right, let me ask you a question, because you're going more broad with the NCAA tournament, which is ultimately what matters.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what's next in the Big 12 tournament, is there anyone you think competes with them for that title? I mean, you got Baylor you got Iowa State and Baylor as the 2 and 3 seeds in that conference. Like, who do you think maybe knocks them off, prevents them from winning the tournament?
I'm going Iowa State. I'm going Iowa State to win the Big 12 tournament, and partially because I'm going Iowa State to win the Big 12 tournament. After the loss this weekend. Yeah, I mean, after the loss, but I'm going Iowa State to win the Big 12 tournament. And I mean, in that loss, I mean, you playing against the Kansas State team who needed that game more than probably almost anybody in the country to even have a slither of hope to make this tournament, which I don't think they'll get in because I don't think they did enough work towards the last 5 or 6 games. But they needed that game more than anything, and it was senior night. You know that. I mean, Iowa State got put in a trap game. Milan Momcilovic, 0 points. I mean, they really didn't have their greatest game, but it was almost a trap game. Like, that was one of those games you don't expect to win. Kind of like Kansas going into Houston. Like they should not have expected to win that game. I mean, you're not going to win that game. Senior night, Jamal Shed senior night. You just pop them boys at your own home crib in Allen. You're not winning that game. But
any pushback on my Kansas take that they stink?
I'm not gonna say they stink. I mean, that's a decent team, but I'm not
Come
gonna say they stink. I would put them.
They got a way better team last year, even without Hunter Dickinson. And I know Bill Self got sick come tournament time, but they got bounced. I don't think they made it past first weekend, right?
Yeah,
they didn't make it to Sweet 16. They lost to Arkansas.
I would say that Kansas might be, in my personal opinion, one of the more overrated teams in America. 100%. I think
they can't shoot the three. What are we talking? Like they got five guys, and then everybody else, and even their fifth guy, KJ Adams, he can't shoot the three. Well, if you don't have guys that can shoot from the outside, and you bring in your bench guys and Timberlake and Furphy and all these guys I kept hearing about them bringing in that had like what one good or two week good stretch, or if that, they're not it. Like people want to be like. I don't know. Maybe everybody wants to be like a little bit more respectful because we're talking about college students. I don't care. I'm the same age as these kids, maybe a couple years older. They're not it. They are not it.
I think you're not thinking about the bigger picture. And Bill Self is one of the best coaches in college basketball.
Agreed.
He figures it out. Like at the beginning of this year, at the 2 spot, he expected Marco Jackson, one of the highly talented freshmen that you love.
Underwhelming.
He thought that Marco Jackson, probably every Kansas fan thought that he would be way better than what he actually turned out to be. But my man has been absolutely horrible. They have gotten no production from the 2 spot, except when they put in Furphy. And what's crazy to me is this draft class so weak. They got Johnny Furphy going in the first round after
that's what I mean.
After maybe having like 5 or 6 good games.
Furphy should come back. Marco Jackson should 100% come back. If not, transfer and go a little lower. I saw him play in the UA.
Go a little lower?
Maybe drop like.
Jeez.
Maybe he figures it out in the Big 12, but he hasn't had a lot of stretches this year where if he was producing like the recruit they thought they were getting, I think this Kansas team, I'm talking about him in a different light, but I remember watching him in the Champions Classic and early on in the year, and I thought like, all right, it's just some freshman woes with him. It wasn't. No. It was just that was the norm for him. Like he wasn't able to kind of have a breakthrough like we've seen some of the other freshmen this year.
Yeah.
And that's not his fault. He probably would be better off just coming back. He probably doesn't need to transfer. I'm just saying if he wants to transfer, drop it down a level, try to build some confidence with him. I mean, I only mention transfer because that's what ends up happening is like, he's not playing as many minutes as he was. They sold some stock on him because he wasn't producing. And that's not to get off on a tangent on this singular player. Marco Jackson, he's a great player. Yeah. It's just a matter of like with him not producing, the inconsistency of Furphy and Timberlake, they never really know where they're going to get it. And then you got McCullough injured. Now Dickinson's injured.
Yeah.
DeJuan Harris Jr. acts like he's not allowed to shoot the basketball. It's like just no more Kansas. I just was curious. I think they get bounced in the second round. I'd be surprised. And I know, but did you see? That's the other thing I want to say to you. Did you see what Bill Self said? I forget where I read this. I was trying to look it up. Say? He said something along the lines of like a week ago, like he'll never do this again. He'll never have another season like this again, where he was referring to like not being able to shoot, like because they can't shoot.
And that hurts. But
in 2024, if you can't shoot the basketball, how do you expect to advance?
But what do you expect when you have KJ Adams and Hunter Dickinson on the floor at the same time? Like you're lucky that Hunter Dickinson can kind of sort of stretch the floor. But when but
is Hunter Dickinson a bad shooter, or is he just in a slump? Because I thought he was a much better shooter than what he's done at Kansas.
I think he's a pretty decent shooter. Early on in the year, he had a stretch where he was shooting roughly a little bit over 40. He was shooting it well. But what I'm saying is like when you have a 4-man like KJ Adams, and for as many good things that KJ Adams does, the one thing is the offensive spacing. He limits your spacing a lot because he's not a presence. Sure. Like he's in the short corner. Like he just floats a lot of times and he limits your spacing. And when you also got a guy like DeJuan Harris on your team, DeJuan Harris mixed with KJ Adams, now mixed with a Hunter Dickinson who's in a slump. Now you're relying heavily on Kevin McCullough and Furphy to be able to knock down trays. And if they aren't doing it, now your spacing just looks so bad. And you're right. Yeah. Somebody got to shoot. Either the 4-man got to be able to knock down some trays or DeJuan Harris. Because if you're not guarding either one of them dudes, it makes it extremely tough and it puts so much pressure on the rest of everybody else.
I couldn't agree more. All right, let's move quickly to UNC Duke. Won't spend a ton of time on it. UNC obviously sweeps the season series. They clinch the ACC regular season title outright. Kind of on the brink for potentially getting a 1 seed here with Arizona losing to USC. What were your thoughts, takeaways from the game outside of Jay Bilas and Jared McCain painting their fingernails together, which I actually was pro. I was pro that moment. I don't think you were, but
I'm not going to say I
wasn't. What are your thoughts?
I'm not going to say I wasn't, but to get Jay Bilas to paint his fingernails.
What a bro! What a bro!
I mean, that's impressive. I was probably more impressed. I was more impressed that Jared McCain could convince Jay Bilas, Mr. Lawyer Jay Bilas, Mr. Super Serious Jay Bilas, to put some fingernail polish on his fingernails was probably the most impressive thing I've seen all season. So shout out to Jared McCain for being able to talk Jay Bilas into that segment, because I thought it was kind of creative, right? But then that's when I knew they were going to lose. I was like, bro, you out here painting your fingernails before the game with Jay Bilas. Like, come on now. Let's lock in.
Can I say one thing about the fingernail thing with Jared McCain?
Go ahead.
Just one thing.
Go ahead.
Think about the target on that kid's back. He paints his nails. He's the TikTok dancer. He's unapologetically himself. And, like, there's a line of people waiting at the door for him to not play well, lose a game for Duke, do something bad, so they can come running at the Twitter mentions to talk their shit. And I just want to say that I think what he has done at Duke, like the first 7-8 games, he was getting accustomed. He was struggling, just like Marco Jackson, but he figured it out. I think the first 7 or 8 games, he was averaging 7 points per game. ACC plays averaging 14 points per game. I think the last 13 games, he's averaging close to 17 a night. So, I just think what he's been able to do and not pay any attention to that stuff and just go out there and hoop and actually hoop at a high level at Duke, at a school that is they're like the Warriors. They're like the Yankees. They're hated. They're like the Patriots. Nobody likes the Brotherhood unless you're part of the Brotherhood. And so I just credit to him. I'm pro. I don't love the I don't love sitting there. I don't sit there and watch him.
But I'm not watching.
But I like that
McCain TikTok,
I like that he's himself, and he can compartmentalize what he likes to do off the court, and then get onto the basketball court and keep it business and give you buckets and play well.
For sure, I would say that the painting the fingernails. A lot of dudes do that, right? I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna paint my fingernails. I'm not gonna do it. You're probably not gonna do that for you. But I'm okay. I'm cool with that, right? But it's the TikTok dances that get me. Shaking your hips all the time on TikTok. As a dude, that if I'm playing against you and I'm watching you shaking your hips and they got 1 million views on my TikTok, for sure I'm coming at you a little harder. I'm about to really go at you in a second, for sure.
Let me paint you a picture, because you left college a couple years before I did. So I had the perspective of playing college basketball with older people like you, people my own age, and then when I was a senior, super senior, because I did 5 years, I had that next gen of TikTok kids on my team. So you walk into the locker room and you see them making a TikTok dance. You got media day pictures and you got the cameras out. You're in your uniforms, and all they're worried about is their TikTok videos. And when you see it up close and personal, I think we all feel the same way. It's bro, what are we doing?
What are
we doing?
Stop shaking your hips in my locker room, man.
I think that's what it is. I think it's the shaking of the hips. Anything of note about the game you want to touch on outside of UNC just overall being better than Duke, and the fact that they could potentially match up in the ACC tournament final, assuming because they're the 2 best teams in the ACC. Anything else of note? Because we can push these guys to the side unless you got something.
Nah, we can't push North Carolina to the side when they're dangerous. I think when you look at a team like North Carolina, I think they have everything that you need in order to compete for a national championship. Am I saying that they'll win one? I don't know. But I think that they have everything that you need in order to win one. They have guards who can get it off the bounce, who can create their own shots, moving Elliot Cadeau to the starting lineup. We talked about Elliot Cadeau earlier on in the season. Moving Elliot Cadeau to the starting lineup, allowing RJ Davis to play the 2. Now he's averaging about 21 points per game, efficient from the 3-point line, shooting a little bit over 41. I mean, that guy right there has turned into a complete player that I don't think gets enough love.
Let's not forget about 8-year veteran, 25-year-old Cormac Ryan. Don't leave him out.
For sure. And that he was
Don't
next.
Leave the vet out.
Yeah, no, he was next on my list. When you look at a dude like him, you look at Harrison Ingram, a Dallas, Texas kid who I honestly, at Stanford, he was decent. but he's upped his game.
He's a prospect.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
he's going to get
he's
drafted.
upped his game to a whole different
Yeah.
level.
Oh yeah.
To where he's almost averaging a
there was a
double-double.
point in the season. There was a point in the season before R.J. Davis really started taking off, where
He was good.
Harrison Ingram was looked at as like this is our lead guy.
Yes.
And then R.J. Davis obviously just like put the pieces back together. But
Bruh,
he's
good.
behind Davis. He's 2 or 3, depending on what Baycott's doing.
Bro, and he's good. And then we talk about big fella down low that cleans up all the misses, the double-double machine. But he's averaging like 13 points, 10 rebounds, you know? This man every single night, not even every single night, for the past like 3 seasons, he has been a monster on the glass. This guy right here just cleans up all their misses. So when you look at their starting 5, you look at some of the dudes they bring off the bench, they have every single piece that you need in order to be successful and go on a deep tournament run. And I think that North Carolina is legit. Duke is a good team. They get no production from their bench. They're a solid 5 strong, but they're a good team. Their starting 5 is solid. They're good. But to go sweep them twice in a heated rivalry, impressive. To do what North Carolina has done all season, impressive. Everybody was down on Hubert Davis, but I think this year is one of his more impressive coaching jobs when you look at what he's done in the transfer portal and the production and the elevation of certain players and how they have gotten better and they have grown. He's a hell of a coach. He is good. I think this North Carolina team is dangerous.
I agree with you, and I like what you said about Duke's bench being their debilitating factor, because they just don't have, like, they played 8 guys yesterday. They played 8 dudes versus North Carolina, and like Filipowski got it going later in the second half.
But hold on, but mind you, those 8 guys they played, 2 of those 8 guys played less than 5 minutes.
Yeah,
well,
Stewart played 7 minutes, and TJ Power
less than 8 minutes. Yeah.
TJ Power played 4. I mean, and your one big guy off the bench, Ryan Young, played 19 minutes. He's not giving you anything but a couple offensive rebounds and like hopefully he keeps his body in front of Baycott, but he's not doing anything.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. All right, let's finish up with some quick takes. We'll bring in producer Rob. Go about 5 minutes here just on some closing thoughts around all of college basketball. Rob, what do you got for us?
Tournament time is here, fellas. Curious of what teams and players you got heading into March.
I got one team because they got 3 dudes, and it's Creighton. Because they got 3 guys averaging a minimum of 17 points per game. Trey Alexander, Bailey Shireman, Ryan Kalkbrenner. Trey Alexander is 17-5-5. Shireman's 18-8-4. They're both shooting 45% from the field. Kalkbrenner's 7 rebounds, 3 blocks, 65%. I didn't have enough time to research this before I found that, like, looked at these Creighton stats, but I didn't have enough time to research. Has there been another team in college basketball that's had 3 dudes average a minimum of 17 points per game? Like, I can't, off the top of my head, think without, like, filtering a really in-depth search.
I know Kansas has 2.
Yeah, Kansas but, like, that when I saw the third, when I saw Kalkbrenner was at the 17-point per game mark as well, I was like, these guys are scary.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, my pick is UConn. I think they're going to win the Big East title. I think they're going to win the championship. But, like, Creighton is not to be messed with. And they lost dudes. Like, they don't even have – but they've put together another solid season. So that would be my one team because of those 3 players. My overall teams – King, go ahead, and then I'll jump to my overall teams.
Yeah, I'm going to go the opposite direction as far as you went big picture. I'm going to go a sleeper team and whom a lot of people are overlooking but could make some noise, and that's Grand Canyon. I mean, they've only had 4 losses on the season. They're led by a guy who was a former Kansas Jayhawk. A former Kansas Jayhawk, was in JuCo. He was the number 1 player out of the JuCo class about 2-3 years ago. When you watch his JuCo tape, and I get it. Now, some JuCo levels, you're like, yeah, bro, like, whatever. But don't get it twisted. It's not easy out there. JuCo was a grind. And the way that this dude made the game look easy, he is an automatic bucket getter, one of the best one-on-one scorers in the country, in Tyon Grant Foster. This guy right here, if you have not heard his name, I promise you in a few weeks, you probably will. He had the heart condition. I think he ended up transferring to DePaul and had the heart condition. Now he's at Grand Canyon, averaging 19 points per game. One-on-one, these dudes get a bucket. Him and Harrison, I don't know if these dudes can be guarded one-on-one. They just will ISO you to death and get buckets, and that's what makes them dangerous. 4 losses on the season, absolutely dominant in the WAC league. I think Grand Canyon can be a very, scary team. They're old. They're led by McLaughlin, who is I want to say like 24, 25 years old. They have veteran leadership. These dudes are good. They can cause a lot of problems for a higher seed.
Did the Drew family pay you for this answer?
I plead,
Rice, Drew, Scott Drew.
I plead the fifth.
I would say though, like I like them as a sleeper team because they made the tournament last year and they lost to Gonzaga in the first round.
And they won a game not last year but the year before. They won a game. They beat who they beat?
Yeah, they've been in the tournament. They've done a good job, like winning.
Yeah,
winning
Bryce Drew's done a really good job. 100%.
Yeah,
bro.
my teams to watch, and you can scratch some of these or you can add to it. My overall teams to watch that I think are the only ones with a real chance. And this is in no order: Marquette, Kentucky, UConn, Creighton, Arizona, Tennessee, UNC. Oh, and Houston. That's the list.
Dang, no Baylor?
No Baylor. Nah.
You're a hater.
Too streaky.
You're an absolute hater.
Too streaky. Didn't love their.
Yeah, you want to talk about streaky?
Yeah, they don't cut it.
You want to talk about streaky? And you put Marquette in there, hater.
Yeah, but when Kolek's getting a little bit of good rest from that oblique injury,
hater.
Iguodala will be back. Rob, what's the next one before me and Kim start arguing?
Can you just be on my side and say that Noah's a hater?
Okay, so your one add is Baylor. You wouldn't subtract. You would replace Baylor for Marquette.
Yes.
I think Marquette's on a little bit of a redemption tour after their poor outing in last year's tournament, but it'll be remains to be seen.
Hater.
Rob, take us away.
Hater.
I'm staying neutral, fellas. I'm staying neutral. South Carolina won to advance to the SEC Women's Final after Camila Cardoso hit an insane 3-point shot. They take on number 8 LSU today. What's your guys' thoughts on the buzzer beater and who you got in the championship?
Put a body on her. I don't care if she's never hit a 3 in her life. Put a body on. Don't stand 20 feet away from her.
No. No.
In no way, shape, or form should she have been able to just shoot. Just shoot. And yeah, she banked it in, so it was even more lucky. But it was meant to be. Because you just didn't want to step up a little. I get it. You don't want anything at the rim. But you didn't have to sag off that much. That was ridiculous, King.
Yeah, I mean, you could at least had a contest. But as hoopers, we say things like this. Anybody else can beat us except this person. Or we'll say, this person has to beat us, and if they beat us, we'll live. Tennessee.
You still ain't living with that, though.
Yeah, no. I'm living with that, bro. She hasn't hit a 3.
You miss out on the NCC tournament final because you live with that. I'm not doing that.
She ain't hit a 3 all her whole career, bro. So you mean to sit up here and tell me that you're not living with that?
I wouldn't want her first career three-pointer to get hit against me and prevent me from going to the SEC tournament final. I wouldn't want that.
You were an analytical dude, okay? You're a smart guy. You're an analytical guy. The analytics tell you, why am I going? I mean, you could at least contest. But I'm living with this.
That's all I'm saying.
I'm living with Cardoso hitting that 3 if that's the game winner. She got so many other girls that can play, that can shoot that 3. We took everything else away, but like she shot a 3, banked it in. I'm living with that, bro. Like, yeah, it hurts, it sucks. I'm living with it.
I don't know, bro. To knock off number 1 and go to the SEC tournament final, that's a hard one to live with. Even if you're living with it, that's a hard one to live with. Rob, what's next?
JuJu Watkins dropped 33 points to lead USC back to the Pac-12 finals. Number 5 USC takes on Stanford today. What's your thoughts on JuJu and who you got in the final?
Girl, that's a bad girl. And earlier on this season, let's not get it twisted. JuJu Watkins put up 50 against Stanford. There's no way in the world they're doing a repeat. Tara Vanderveer is one of the best coaches in all of women's college basketball. And there is no way she is going to let JuJu Watkins beat her again. They went to Stanford, and JuJu Watkins just put on a prime Kobe performance. So there is no way in the world in the Pac-12 championship, Tara Vanderveer is going to let JuJu Watkins do the same thing. Stanford will win this game. Cameron Brink will be dominant. I'm going Stanford over USC.
I'm going to keep it as simple as USC has the best player on the floor, so I'm not betting against JuJu Watkins and USC in the Pac-12 final today. What's our last one, Rob?
Oh, my God.
We got one more? What? It's simple. I'm not betting against the best player on the floor. I'm not. Would you take Jokic over Tatum? No.
Yes. That's a whole different debate. We're not going to do that.
I mean, no. I worded that wrong. Oh, my God. Would you take Tatum over? Would you take Tatum over Jokic?
Depends on the day.
No. Best player on the floor is Jokic. So that's what I meant. Jesus, that could have been horrible for me. All right, what's the last one, Rob? That could have been horrible. Tatum over Jokic.
Last week, Caitlin Clark passed Pistol Pete for all-time leading scorer in NCAA history. Today, she takes home and leads Iowa to the Big Ten title. What's your thoughts on Caitlin Clark heading into tournament time?
Speaking of the best player, betting on the best player, I'm taking her in every single matchup. They did just win the Big Ten title a couple minutes prior to us recording this. She passed Pete Maravich. She's the best women's college basketball player since Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird.
You're taking a stool, you know.
She's Brianna Stewart, Maya Moore. Yeah, all these. She's up there with all of them, in my opinion. I mean, she's going to get drafted by the Indiana Fever, and she's going to be a problem from day one in the WNBA. But I'm looking forward to her last go around in this year's March Madness tournament for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. I mean, I would say that she's probably the greatest women's college basketball player ever, and not just from a standpoint of what she's produced, but if you look at the amount of eyeballs, the amount of attention that she has brought towards the women's game, she's honestly kind of like in the same realm as Steph Curry. She's like changing the game in a sense. So what she has done for women's college basketball has just been absolutely huge, and because of that alone, I would say that she's probably the greatest women's college basketball player of all time. But nonetheless, I don't think that she's on the greatest team this year. I think that she can make it to the Final Four, but this South Carolina team, Noah, is dangerous. Dawn Staley has those girls rolling. I think it'd be really tough for Caitlin Clark, as great as she is. I think it'd be really tough for her to be able to knock off this South Carolina team.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It'll be hard. And I like what you said, because in terms of like her overall impact in just growing women's basketball, but basketball in general, and like there's been a number of women's games since last year's Final Four that have dominated the ratings over men's games, even NBA games.
100%.
And I do think a lot of it has to do with that impact that she brings to she has that, like I'm so glad you brought up the Steph Curry thing, because that's how I think about it. Like, to me, when I think of Caitlin Clark, like she has the Steph Curry impact where it's like, oh, she shoots from half court. She's must-see TV. Like, just the way she plays the game. Her scoring, her playmaking, her ability to lead her teammates, like her IQ overall. And the fact that, like, she could put a team on her back and, take you to the national championship game like she did last year. So, one of one, for sure, generational type of talent. But definitely in my, like what you said, she's like the Steph Curry of the women's game, the way she's transformed, like how women's basketball is looked at too, because it's like it ain't just men that can pull up from 45. Like,
facts,
women can do it too. So
hey, talk your talk, Noah. Go ahead and talk. Here we go.
All right, that's a wrap. Episode 2 Swish Pod. Let's leave it there. We'll be back. We got a ton more for March Madness, all the conference tournaments coming up this week. Make sure you subscribe to the Swish YouTube channel. You can follow king.mcclure on Instagram. I'm courtside.snow for more updates on when we're coming back. But we'll be here weekly throughout the rest of this college basketball season. Thanks, everybody, for listening.